Hello, this is Christine Petersen with A Toolkit for a Better Life. In this podcast, we will focus on how our bodies and our minds work and give you various tips and tricks, tools and techniques for understanding yourself, being happier in yourself, and living a better life. Every week, we will discuss different topics that might interest you and help you think differently to change the way you approach life and yourself. We talk about the little things that make a big difference. And in this episode, we will be discussing burnout. What is it and how to avoid it? We will discuss where burnout comes from, how you can notice the signs that you are getting near a burnout, and what to do to avoid it. Good morning, Julie. How are you today?
Good morning, Christine. I'm fine. What about you?
I'm very well. I'm looking forward to today's talk because we're going to be talking about burnout, what it is and how to avoid it. And I think it's one of those really, really important topics, especially right now.
Exactly, yeah. So you mentioned it. What is burnout? Because we hear so many things about this topic, but what is it exactly, please?
So there are a couple of definitions that I've found. One is from Mind Tools, which is a fantastic internet resource. It's a great website, Mind Tools. And they say it's burnout occurs when passionate, committed people become deeply disillusioned with a job or a career from which they have previously derived much of their identity and meaning. It comes as the things that inspire passion and enthusiasm are stripped away and tedious or unpleasant things crowd in. So that's the Mind Tools definition. Now, World Health Organization have a definition as well. And in fact, they recognized burnout as an illness in 2019. So only 2 years ago has it become recognized as an official illness, which is crazy. I mean, it's been around for God knows how long, centuries. They used to call it, I think, mental exhaustion. I don't know if you've heard that phrase.
No.
So now it's called burnout officially, and WHO define it as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. And I would actually agree with the World Health Organization definition because it has so much to do with out of control stress. And it takes such a toll on the whole of your life, actually, once you get into this situation.
Okay. And I know that burnout is a very important topic for you. So can you tell us why?
Well, it is a very important topic because I have been through 1 or 2 burnouts, actually, so hopefully in my life, and I never again. I don't want to say so far. It's a terrible, terrible feeling. What happened, this was about, I would say 13, 14 years ago, even 15 years ago. I was in Lebanon, actually, in Beirut, giving a training course. And it was a Friday afternoon, I remember, and I had finished the training course, luckily, and went back to my hotel room to just rest, for half an hour before I went down to dinner. And I lay down on the bed, and when I tried to get up, I couldn't move. I physically could not move my body. It was like there was disconnect between my brain and my body. My brain was frantically sending signals to my body to say, get up, move your hands, move your fingers, move your toes. And my body just said, no, I am not moving. That's it. I've had enough. And it was extremely frightening.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, so I lay there for a while, not really knowing, have I been, has something happened to me? Am I paralyzed, or what's going on? I really didn't know what was going on. And then it took about an hour or so until I could finally start to move my fingers and toes, and then finally I could actually get up. And I went down and had some food, of course, not very hungry. So I was feeling completely and utterly exhausted. So to the point of not being able to move.
Okay. Crazy, but I know, yeah, that's burnout has an impressive effect. But before you mention stress, so what is the difference between stress and burnout?
Yeah, this is interesting because stress is a sort of a precursor to burnout. It happens before you get into burnout. So let's say let's look at where, if you're in stress or if you are in burnout. So if you're in stress, you tend to be over engaged. You're doing too much. In burnout, you are disengaged. You don't want to do anything. In stress, your emotions are overreactive. There's a lot of emotions going on. Whereas in burnout, there are no emotions left. Stress gives you urgency and hyperactivity. You're constantly doing because you have to do all these things. Whereas burnout produces helplessness and hopelessness. Stress loses energy. You find that you just don't have any energy left. Your gas tank is being depleted. Whereas in burnout, your motivation disappears, your ideals and your hope disappears. Stress can lead to anxiety disorders. In fact, one of the components of stress, of chronic stress, is anxiety. Whereas in burnout, you're past that. You're detached and you tend to feel depressed. And stress may kill you prematurely. And we've spoken about this, where the adrenaline and the cortisol in the body, those hormones, are doing all sorts of damage to the heart, to the cells, to your whole of your body, if they're produced constantly over a long period of time. Now, in burnout, they're no longer being produced. They've burned out. So in burnout, you might not even feel that life is worth living. So this is just absolutely terrible. And in fact, that was almost to the point, I got almost to that point where I stopped really wanting to be alive because I couldn't really see the point of it. And that is burnout. Now, what is it? It is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. So not just physical or not just mental. You have to have all three: physical, emotional, and mentally exhausted. You feel stagnant. You feel bitter, resigned. Now, thank God that burnout is a gradual process. Gradually, life will become less fun. Gradually, you feel you don't want to play anymore. You don't want to laugh. You lose your curiosity. You lose your creativity. And you start to think very negatively about everything. So the glass becomes half empty. And you just feel like getting away from everything, from life, from friends, from family, from work. You just want to put your head under, go to bed, put your head under the covers in a dark room and stay there.
Okay.
Yeah, terrible, terrible feeling.
Indeed, yes. So before we speak about ways to heal burnout, you mentioned passionate people. So can you tell us who is more at risk to get a burnout?
So the people who are more at risk, I mean, I can sum this up actually in one sentence. All the people I know who have been in burnout, including myself, are perfectionists, and they can't say no. Yeah. Terrible combination. Yeah. Because you never finish. You never finish what you need to get done, and you have so much to do. Now, people who tend to be at risk are the people who are poorly matched. So between the demands of their job and themselves. So it means that the job is not the right one for them. They don't have the right skills or abilities for the job they're doing. They tend to be people who have a lot of responsibility but have no authority. They're told to do things and they're responsible for them. However, they have no authority over how things are done. And they tend not to be recognized or appreciated at work and at home. Now, remember, people who go into burnout, it's not just work stress. It's when there's both work and home stress. So stress in all areas of your life. That's when you start to get at risk of burnout. People who are at risk have a lack of control over how things should be done. So they're told to do things and they're told how to do them. They have no control over how to do it themselves. And people who get burnout tend to be super overloaded with work. This is absolutely the case for me. I had total control over how I was doing things because I have my own company. However, I was totally overworked because I have my own company and I was working far too hard. I was training during the day and then doing all the admin and managing everything else in the evening. So I was working easily 12-hour days every day, including Saturdays. So really, it was getting to be much too much. Now, just one thing I'd like to discuss here is a lot of talk is going on at the moment about something we call adrenal fatigue. Have you heard of adrenal fatigue, Julie?
Just, yeah, from far away. So if you tell us more about it, I would be happy to know.
Okay, this is really interesting. At the moment, adrenal fatigue and burnout are considered two different illnesses. However, some people, in fact, say that adrenal fatigue doesn't exist. What is it? Adrenal fatigue is basically when the adrenal glands are burned out. That's giving you a hint here. They're small glands just above your kidneys, and they release exactly the stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, amongst other hormones. Now, when you when you're feeling stressed, then you release cortisol. And if you are constantly stressed, then you are constantly releasing cortisol. So when you're constantly releasing cortisol in your adrenal glands over a period of time, after a while, the body goes into a state where it cannot produce enough cortisol to meet demand. It burns out. And at this point, you now start producing too little cortisol to be useful. So your body is running on empty. This is when you start to feel the need to crawl under the duvet, turn the lights off, and sleep and shut off the world. In fact, what's happening in the body is it's the body's way of protecting the glands, of healing the glands, so that it can once again start to produce cortisol in the right quantity to deal with your body's needs. Basically say, okay, time out for a while, go under the covers, stay in bed, don't do anything until I can get my cortisol production levels up. So this is actually giving us a big clue that overstress over a long period of time will often produce burnout. Burnout doesn't come just by chance. It doesn't come from one day to the next. It's a long process of overproducing cortisol consistently over a long period of time.
Okay.
Now, the signs of adrenal fatigue are actually the signs of burnout, more or less. You feel excessively tired, so you want to crawl under the duvet. You want salt. You're needing extra salt. So if you're wanting to eat chips and crisps and salty foods, but excessively, then that might be a sign. Interesting here, you get energetic in the evening. You're tired during the day, you get energetic in the evening. And then, of course, you can't sleep at night. So you start getting sick easily. You have brain fog, so your brain feels a bit slow. You stop being stress tolerant. So your level of tolerance for stress is lowered dramatically. Your sex drive decreases. Your cycle, if you're a woman, might become irregular. And you may have digestive issues. So a lot of different factors that will show that you're probably going into adrenal fatigue, and then from there you could move into burnout. So yeah, very dangerous stuff here.
Yes, indeed. So, and then you said we could move to burnout, but is there one type of burnout, or?
Actually, there are 3 types of burnout, Julie.
Wow.
Really, really interesting stuff. So you can have what we call hyperachiever burnout. You know, the type A, high performing, overachieving type people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
They tend to have quite a high income. They work very long hours. They're under very high pressure, and there are very high stakes. Now, these people are always on the run. And they often will put their career before themselves and their family. Now, the second type of burnout is what we call scarcity burnout. These are people who are pushing themselves constantly to the brink because they are afraid of not having enough, of scarcity. Now, the push is not to achieve more. Instead, it's a push to be able to put food on the table, to make ends meet. It's a survival instinct. They often have, 2 or more jobs going on at the same time, working days and nights, working no breaks. Maybe they're working in the gig economy, so they don't have any fixed salary or fixed job. And this causes enormous amounts of stress. And over a long period of time, of course, that's going to probably cause burnout. Then there's the third type. This is an interesting one. It's one that I didn't realize existed. It's called boredom burnout. It's basically it's the type of people who don't have any challenges in their lives, don't feel they have opportunities, and they're not growing. So they're doing the same thing every day. Get up in the morning, go to work, go home, eat, sleep, repeat.
The third one is also called bore out, I think.
Oh, bore out. Wonderful. I love that expression.
Yeah,
to bore out. Yes. Terrible.
Even if it's not funny at all, but it's the word sounds quite cool.
The word sounds cool. It's not funny at all. None of the burnouts are fun at all. At the end of the day, we end up in the same place.
Okay, so we can have different types of burnout, but anyway, the result, unfortunately, is the same.
It is.
And why or what are the causes of a burnout?
Well, the causes of burnout, I found 5 causes, and of course there are probably many more because each of us is individual. However, some of these might ring true to some of you who are listening today. So the first one, of course, is the pressure to achieve. It's when you're pushing yourself to reach overly exacting standards that have set by others. So you are pushing and pushing and pushing, and you never get there. So the stress just mounts. The second cause of burnout is actually pessimism, seeing the glass as half empty, together with constant pressure from all sides. So stress at home and stress at work. The third one is isolation. If you're feeling very isolated, and of course in the last couple of years with the COVID, it has, or a year and a half, we're not, thank God, not a couple of years yet. A lot of people have been isolated and have been under enormous pressure and stress. And I'm hearing that the rates of burnout are increasing dramatically these days, and I'm not surprised. It's not finished yet. A fourth one is what we call mindless social media consumption. So basically using all the social media, the Facebook, the whatever tools or things on your phone constantly without really thinking about what you're doing, that can lead to burnout because it raises your level of stress because you're constantly looking for the news or the new information, or constantly also maybe posting. If young people today are under enormous pressure on social media to be perfect.
Yes, that's true. And
And
I read also, sorry, Christine,
yes,
I read
sorry.
also that they are stressed when they post, or they're depressed when they post something, because they are so scared of being criticized that they do not even enjoy sharing information or pictures. So
Uh,
I
how
think it's quite
terrible.
sad.
That's
Mm.
really sad. Yeah. And then with all these filters that you get
Yes.
now, that you can change, you can become perfect by
Yeah.
using a filter. So if everybody's using filters, everybody looks perfect. So that gives
Mhm.
enormous pressure on young people to also look perfect, and
Mhm.
of course to use filters. So we're getting into this crazy, crazy life, really.
Mhm.
The last one is income inequality. We spoke about it a little bit before. These people who are constantly working to make ends meet, to pay for rent and put food on the table. If you don't have stable employment, it's very, very easy to become emotionally exhausted. So that can be a great, a very big reason for burnout.
Okay. Before, you said that there are different stages to burn out. So can you describe them to us?
Yeah, there are considered generally 5 stages in the burnout. In the burnout, what do we want to call it? Burnout situation.
Evolution.
Evolution, yeah, evolution's a great word.
Mhm.
So the first stage is what we call the full tank, the honeymoon stage. This is where
Mhm.
you've got a job, you're enjoying it, high energy, you've got satisfaction from solving problems, the job is interesting, and you feel you can develop your own special abilities. Everything is fine, it's honeymoon, everything is wonderful. Then stress starts and your fuel starts to run low. You feel the graduate onset of frustration, of tiredness. You start to lose interest in your job. You start to distance yourself from coworkers and your clients. You even start to use labels. For example, oh, he's an ass. So, and you start to become cynical and negative.
Okay.
You notice that you're starting to become inefficient and you're making more mistakes because you're always under pressure. And by working under pressure all the time, we tend to make mistakes.
Mhm.
So our physical symptoms of anxiety start to increase, and stress levels. So when we're waking in the morning, bang, our brain starts to race. And at night, we're having problems sleeping because our brains are racing. And
Mhm.
this, of course, is causing us to be more and more tired. General tiredness, not just muscle tiredness or mental tiredness, physical tiredness as well as mental tiredness. And our sleep, as I said, is disturbed. And we will increase what we call escape activities. So
Mhm.
we will increase taking drugs, drinking, eating, smoking, maybe even buying things. Some people use shopping as an escape activity.
Mhm.
Then we get into the third stage. The third stage is called chronic stress, and we're getting towards a crisis. We're now in stress full time from the moment we wake in the morning till the time we try to fall asleep at night. The symptoms of stress and dissatisfaction with the job dominate all areas of our lives. We want to be alone. We start rejecting help. We start
Mhm.
feeling really angry, and we're abusing even more alcohol and drugs to try and escape. We can't seem to relax, and we start thinking of extreme measures. For example, resigning from our jobs, basically running away, moving away, or if you're already or if you are in clinical depression, and depression actually happens often in this phase, you can start to think of suicide, even of ending it all, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Um, then the fourth stage, where you go into full burnout, you start to feel empty. There is no more cortisol in your system, or very little cortisol. You start to have a pessimistic outlook on work and life. Your physical symptoms are increasing or decreasing. You start having self-doubt. You completely neglect your personal needs. So you
Mhm.
completely neglect yourself and your needs. And you really want to move away from work and family and friends, just escape, run away. And finally, we get into what we call habitual burnout. And this is where you probably need professional help to get out of it. Your energy is completely depleted. You can't get up, you can't move, you can't get up in the morning. You're feeling completely empty. Your symptoms are getting worse. You're probably drinking more, or smoking more, or drugs or whatever. Chronic sadness. So here we're getting in also to depression. And you are chronically, physically and mentally tired, fatigue. So those are the 5 stages. So of course, if we can catch this at stage 2, at stress, and leave it at that and understand we're getting stress, and maybe we see we're moving into chronic stress, then we've got time to pull away from the burnout. The problem with burnout, Julie, is that once you're in burnout, it can take between 6 months to 2 years to get back. Yeah. Some people even say more than 2 years. So very often you have to stop working, you have to stay home, see a psychologist, maybe a psychiatrist if you are clinically depressed, and totally change your life around. Because if you go back to the same job, you're going to go back into burnout because you're going to get the same stress factors.
Yeah. So to avoid this, what are the warning signs?
The warning signs. Of course, let's look at the health problems we might have. So we might start having back pain, backache, because the muscles are starting to tense up, and the shoulder ache as well, shoulder pain. Start feeling depressed. We may have heart problems or obesity, or maybe you're just getting sick a lot. Okay. We might having problems with our memory or with making decisions. We may have problems controlling our emotions and focusing. You'll notice you're making silly mistakes, you're forgetting important things, you are having outbursts of emotion that you wouldn't normally have. This is where you're starting to burn out, probably. You may have difficulty with work and personal relationships. So some people start attacking other people, being aggressive, and getting involved in silly, unnecessary conflicts, whereas others are more inclined to withdraw and avoid people that they care about. You'll probably see a dip in your performance. And of course, then you'll start taking work home with you, because you've got to get the work done and you don't have time during the day because you're not performing actively. You're going to start getting fatigued and exhausted. Wake up with no energy after a good night's sleep. You start to drink large amounts of caffeine and probably have trouble staying awake at work. You feel negative, you have anxiety attacks, you judge others, you're feeling cynical, you're focusing on the negative side of life. Decreased satisfaction with projects and people that normally would excite you and motivate you. You no longer have any emotion, any interest. And you start, of course, you'll notice when you start to have poor self-care. So your self-control decreases, you start to eat badly, drink more if you're drinking, or smoke or whatever, use drugs, stop showering, maybe stop caring for your appearance. So a lot of these things are clear warning signs that you're going downhill quite fast.
Okay. So now the big question is how to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. How do we avoid it? Well, let's try and avoid it in stage 2, maximum stage 3, in the stress stage, before we get to the burnout stage. Now, the first thing is you've got to understand where the pressure comes from. So start to realize what's going on in your life. You can go online and find one of those burnout tests or the stress test and find out where are the stressors in your life. And you'll find they'll be both in the work and the home. If you have too much to do and too little time, you should start thinking about prioritizing, learning to say no, and only doing what you can do in a day, and don't put extra pressure on yourself. Try and disconnect every day. So have time to yourself during the day. So 5 minutes every hour, an hour at lunch every day, or time every day to go for a walk or just sit in the sunshine or read a book or read an article, something that's not work related. So move your brain away. And then, of course, in the evening, try and have an hour for yourself of just me time. This is where meditation helps a lot of people. Just 20 minutes of meditation really lowers the stress levels of people. Try and avoid exhaustion. So go to bed at the same time every night. Try and get a good sleep schedule, sleep pattern, and start scheduling relaxation. So at least have one day a week where you can relax and you're not thinking about work or things to do. And also pay attention to your body signals. See how your body is feeling. Try and eat properly and stay away from alcohol and cigarettes and drugs and bad foods. Stay away also from sleeping pills or sedatives, because they're extremely interesting when you can't sleep at night. So it's very easy to fall back onto those. So try and stay away from. There are other things you can do, like drink lavender tea in the evening, or hot milk or whatever. I was reading an article yesterday that what you want to try and do is to eat foods that contain tryptophan and also a little bit of carbohydrates. So they were saying that some peanut butter on a piece of toast.
I like that.
Yeah, peanut butter on toast in the evening, just before you go to bed, is actually considered useful, because the tryptophan is going to produce serotonin, and serotonin is a fantastic hormone that helps us relax. So anything that contains tryptophan is good for us. And of course, people can look that up online and find ways to do that. So peanut butter is one of them, which is great. Other things you can do is get yourself organized, make sure that you know where things are, you know what you're going to be doing, so that you don't keep having panic attacks because you forget to do things. And finally, I would say lean on your support system. Use your friends, use your family, use your colleagues as support as much as possible. Just one last thing here that you can do that I found very useful personally is to look at what we call the zones of influence. Zone of influence, zone of no influence. So whenever something happens or you hear something, just remind yourself, is this something that I can influence? I can do something about? Or is it something I cannot influence? I cannot do anything about? And then try and only act or react to things that are within your zone of influence. And that will also lower your stress level, because you can't control everything. You can't influence everything. So it's a good idea just to keep the two separate.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And if unfortunately we are in a burnout, what can we do to heal it?
Yeah, this of course is the million-dollar question. Now, hopefully, we can avoid getting into burnout. I did not avoid it. I got straight into burnout. It took a long time. I didn't even know of the warning signals, and I didn't listen to them. So I got into burnout. And the problem is burnout does not go away on its own. In fact, it's just going to get worse unless you address the underlying issues that are causing your burnout. If you ignore your burnout, it's only going to cause you further harm down the line. So it's important that you begin recovery as soon as possible. Now, recovery is a very slow journey. It's not a quick dash to a finish line. You need time and space to recuperate. So whatever you do, don't rush the process. Now, the body is going to tell you how things are going. Now, in the beginning, it's going to say, I'm not getting out of bed. Whatever you do, I'm not getting out of bed. So that's one way to relax and force yourself to relax. A couple of other things is think of the why. Why are you in burnout? What's been happening in your home and work life to cause the burnout? And what can you do to change the stresses? Focus on the basics. We all know these. Exercise. Exercise by doing something you enjoy doing. Follow a sleep routine. diet low in sugar, caffeine, alcohol, and junk food. So eat healthy. Get some nutritional supplements, for example, vitamins B5, B6, B12. So a multivitamin every day is a good idea. A multi-B vitamin, even better. Vitamin C has been shown to help increase the immune system, and magnesium. I tend to take magnesium every evening. It relaxes me and it helps go to sleep. GABA, G-A-B-A, is a natural product that's found in the brain, and some of us don't have enough levels of GABA. GABA is a precursor, again, to serotonin, and serotonin is what we also call the mood stabilizer. So you can take supplements of GABA. You can find them in health shops or even on Amazon, actually. There's a book, actually, if you're interested in using natural chemicals that are found in the body already to feel better. There's a book by Patrick Holford, Holford, called Natural Highs, and you might find that very, very interesting. I've used it to follow a better diet and routine and start taking supplements. You will probably have to take a holiday or vacation and a leave of absence from your work, and reorganize your home life as well, so that you're not doing too much. You may have to reassess your goals in life and completely change what you're doing and how you're doing it. Some people leave their jobs and start completely different careers. I know one couple that she was in burnout for some years. She left her job. They left Copenhagen. In fact, they were living in Copenhagen. They moved to Sweden, and they created a bed and breakfast with a gourmet restaurant, and it worked very, very well. Yeah, and I mean, high stress, but completely different stress.
Yeah, there is a meaning.
There was a meaning.
You mentioned before that when you don't have a meaning, it's problematic. So
yes, exactly. There was a big meaning to every day they woke up in the morning with a really good focus and a really good goal to achieve. What you really should be doing as well is learning to say no. Remember, we said that people who go into burnout tend to be perfectionists who can't say no. Yeah. So learn to say no politely, of course, and in general, practice positive thinking.
Okay, cool. So to finish this podcast or this episode, what is your final word, except peanut butter?
Peanut butter on toast. Yes. Exactly. My final words would be aware. Be aware of your body. Be aware of what's happening in you, and catch it before it's too late, before you go into full-blown burnout or full-blown stress. Make sure that you lead a balanced life, and that will help you avoid burnout.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christine, for all these tips, and do take care of yourself then.
Thank you, Julie, and likewise. So enjoy the peanut butter on toast in the evenings, along with the chocolate, of course. Oh, you can have peanut butter and chocolate on toast. Wow.
That's magical.
That's
magic. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon then.
Thanks a lot, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.